Hi everyone, good morning. This is Subodh from EV Dunya. And today we have with us Mr. Maxine Lewis, who's the founder and managing director of Magenta EVT. Hi Maxine, welcome to EV Talks by EV Dunya.
Hi, Subodh. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be presenting and talking about what we are doing at Magenta.
It's a pleasure to host you. So, everyone, to give you all a brief introduction about Mr. Maxon, he's a visionary entrepreneur and a technology enthusiast with over 20 years of experience in automotive, power, clean energy solutions, and management consulting areas. And he's worked for top MNCs like Accenture, Bosch, and Saint-Gobain in the past. So he founded Magenta, which is an fully integrated EV solutions company to support the electric mobility mission of the Indian government. Under his leadership, Magenta has won numerous awards and accolades and is recognized for its pioneering work in clean energy solutions. And this is all in a span of less than 4 years. Now, as the founder and managing director of Magenta, Maxim leads the design, development, and day to day operations of its products and systems. He's also focused on expanding Magenta network across all Indian states and overseas. Now, he's responsible for strategic partnerships and network development, advancing mobility electrification market development. Maxon has played an instrumental role in leading the company's growth and establishment as a prominent EV player in the industry. Now, apart from leading Magenta, Maxon has also been a coach to startups and an advisor to medium-sized enterprises. He's a true social activist in the areas of green energy and waste management, and he has authored several, published research papers and articles in leading business newspapers. By education, Maxon is a mechanical engineer and an MBA. And in his spare time, he likes to read, ride superbikes. He's a cyclist, off-roader, and he's a big-time music lover. So that's a lot of things, Maxon. Welcome again to EV Talks.
Thank you so much, Subodh, for that lovely introduction. Really appreciate it. That's quite a lot, but lots more to do, I would say.
Yeah, I've just tried to cover whatever I knew, and I'm sure you do a lot of other things than this. So, Maxine, now that people know about you, I have a few questions regarding Magenta, which I hope you can answer.
Sure.
Yeah. So, to start with, can you tell our viewers a bit about what Magenta EVET is?
Sure. So, Subodh, let me first tell what Magenta is and then what Magenta EVET stands for. Magenta EV Solutions is in the business of empowering clean mobility. And while we were doing this, while we built up Magenta as a company, we found that there are very unique problem statements in the transition towards electric mobility in India.
Right.
Started off first with putting up charging locations by themselves. That was one. But then we soon realized that the charging locations requires charging hardware, which supports that hardware and software. So we invested in the R&D part of it. Then while we were doing it, so we developed the entire software in-house. And the latest, if I were to say, is the adoption of electric mobility largely will be driven by the logistics or the last mile mobility. And that's where we started to develop. So we have 4 business verticals very clearly. First is EVCE, which is electric vehicle charging equipment, wherein we develop all the entire R&D is done in-house. This is deployed on the Charge Grid network, which is the network of charging stations, charging hubs, including close to around 400 charging points in Bangalore city itself. Right? And then we have the Informatics House, which developed the technology. And the EVET platform, which we are talking about, actually stands for Electric Vehicle Enabled Transport. So we realized that for the transition for the e-commerce and the last mile mobility transition, they are not looking for a vehicle. They're looking for a company which will provide them the last mile mobility logistics opportunity, the driver platform, the charging platform, and very uniquely, even the parking platform. So that's an integrated place that we provide under EVET. So it's Magenta EVET, and that's the business we offer. So in Bengaluru itself, at this point in time, we have more than close to around now, we're just touching close to around 300 odd electric cargo vehicles in Bangalore city itself, provided on the EVET platform, charged under the ChargeGrid platform. I'm just going beyond your stated question is to tell you that that's the intended outcome is electrification of last mile mobility, last mile and mid mile. And of course, I'll talk about the plans and other things as the questions come along.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I actually have a few questions around that later on. So thanks for telling us about that, Maxim. So now that we know what exactly Magenta is into, can you tell which cities you're currently operational in? You told about Bangalore, which other cities, and you mentioned about providing these vehicles actually for last mile delivery. So how many vehicles are there in your fleet currently?
Sure. So interestingly, that's exactly every time I answer, you'll find my answer in three propositions. One is the product, one is the charging as a service, and last is going to be the EVET platform. So as a product, of course, we are deploying or providing chargers as a product across India and now also internationally. Okay. On the ChargeGrid platform, it is putting up the charging network. We are covered all the way from Jammu and Kashmir to Kashmir to Kanyakumari, including Manipur as well. And we have put up this platform, the charging platform, which is for not only limited to last mile mobility, but generally as well. I mean, for vehicles, etc. We are seed funded by HPCL, and we're providing a lot of these solutions to a lot of other companies. Now, from an EVET platform perspective, which is a last mile mobility platform, we are right now, we started the pilot, if I were to say, in Bengaluru. And we have taken a position that get everything right in one city and then replicate that across cities. So in Bengaluru itself, we have close to around 300 odd vehicles. And like I said, the charging points all inclusive, and we are still building it up. In fact, on a fortnightly basis, we are having at least 25 vehicles added on a fortnightly basis. Sometimes more, but I'm just giving an average. We just next week we're formally launching in Hyderabad.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Hyderabad, the office, the locations, the charging points is all up. So how we go in is we understand the pain point. So we solve that, and then the last event just is the last thing. In fact, not the first thing to enter, the last thing which enters in.
Yeah.
And next month we are launching formally in Mumbai as well. So we are taking a sequential approach. Bangalore first, and now we are probably one of the largest operator there already, electric car operator. Then next is Hyderabad, then Mumbai. We are also starting off but sequentially we'll start off in Pune and Delhi as well. Pune, Delhi, and Chennai. That is also on our radar very soon.
That's great to know. Yeah. So like first you're building up the infrastructure, and finally after everything has been set up, EVET comes in.
Correct.
That's awesome.
You can call it EVET. We call it EVET. Yeah.
Yeah. EVET. All right. So another question, like you mentioned about your charging network, right, from Jammu to Kanyakumari. So is it open for everyone to use, and if they want to use it, how can they? Is there an app for them where they can pre-book a charging slot, or how is it?
Incidentally, and unknown to many, really, India's first EV charging app was launched in September 2018. And that was Magenta ChargeGrid.
Oh, wow.
Right? And that's one of the things about us. I mean, there's a lot of work we do. We are not out there in the open, but yeah, now we're formally launching it. Yes, the entire charging network, be it independent from Magenta or even otherwise, is all available on the ChargeGrid platform, Magenta ChargeGrid platform. Okay. It's a full-fledged app both on iOS and Android. In which you can locate the charging stations. You know what is the status of the charging, okay, and also the entire payment gateway is auto-enabled.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So and also interestingly, this app is made specifically for the EV drivers, both the individual drivers and also the fleet drivers. We call it the concept of a single thumb, 3 taps, which means you don't have to use more than 3 taps to start your charging. In fact, now we are doing something very interesting as well in that space. So the entire idea is in the last mile mobility or even otherwise, there should be ease of charging.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Interestingly, the Event platform not only provides us the charging grid and the Event platform, all our charging hubs, by the way, incidentally, not incidentally, it's intentionally, safety, quality, and integrity is integral to Magenta and not negotiable. It's a non-negotiable with us.
Yeah.
If you go to any of the charging hubs or the Event platform, you'll find all the safety systems, fire extinguishers, cameras, security, all of that in place. So the idea is, see, we are at a cusp of a transition, to be honest, how I look at it.
Right.
Not only should we go clean, we should go better. So clean is just one outcome.
Right.
Fleet mobility has been one of those places where it has been down to the trenches, as they say, right? It's something which is happening in the back end. There's no visibility. There is no kind of infrastructure invested into that last mile mobility other than the vehicles.
Right.
Right. And now when you're going electric, you are moving that to a cleaner, which also requires charging. And when you're providing charging, why not provide the other facilities? So that's the transition that we are trying to build in under the Event platform, if I were to say.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the entire charge grid network is open for anyone to come and charge. Mm-hmm. There are specific, we call it the depots or the hubs which are dedicated for fleet charging, both for the Event platform and for others as well. And what has worked for us is the ability to take an integrated approach, but at the same time, open it to others.
Right.
Be it a charging platform is open to Event plus to others as well. And of course, you'll come to charging hubs, you'll see a lot of other partners with us. Mm-hmm. On the same way, Event platform is also very interesting. It's not unique to us. We are opening up the Event platform to other code drivers as well. Which is the very interesting piece around the technology layer. Mm-hmm. At today's point in time, let's say an e-commerce or any company wants to track its fleet, find out what is the driver safety mechanisms, etc. We have a technology layer which allows us to find where is the vehicle, what is the state of charge of the battery, how far he can go. Mm-hmm. In fact, we can also tell whether the headlights are on, which indicator has been put on. And the entire intention is not to track the driver and the value of the goods, but also to ensure that the vehicle reaches its destination in the intended charge and find the next charging station. So there's a lot more than just the fact that it's just a last mile mobility. It's that entire tech layer that has been built. And we are offering this tech layer to a lot of driver partners. We could use the word EVpreneurs.
Oh.
So, yeah. Which is because we believe that this transition to happen, one of the key players is these individual driver partners who own 1 to 5 vehicles. They need a proof of the concept. They need someone to back them up. If they transition, business guarantees, charging guarantees, parking guarantees, and that's what Magenta Event provides. So there's a larger view of all of things. I know I've answered a lot more than just a charging network, but I thought it's important for me to play that out.
You've actually answered one of my next questions, which was around fleet management system. So yeah, thanks again for that.
Yeah.
You've already spoken a bit about it, but since I had this in my list of questions, so how do you take care of charging the EVs for last mile delivery? Again, you have your own network, but then anything further to add to that?
Oh yeah, lots actually. So first is the network that we have built within the cities, right? So we use a very OR centric view, or the operations research centric view of how the vehicles are moving, and hence where are all the hubs that need to be. That's one. Mm-hmm. Second, we work very closely with the e-commerce companies and find out where are their hubs, existing hubs, right? So it's a very classic OR problem, to be honest. There's something very interesting that we are doing right now at one of the world's largest e-commerce hub. We're actually putting up charging stations at the hubs itself.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So what happens is the vehicles are coming in and just standing over there while the loading or unloading is happening is also where they can do the charging.
Right. Yeah.
So this is where, Subodh, you will find us as a company is not a very insular in our outlook. We do not want to build the entire technology and the platform for ourselves. We believe that it has to be provided to the overall network.
Yeah.
The idea is to support the entire transition. We could have chosen to say, hey, listen, we have our hubs and only for the Event platform. That's not the play that we have playbook. our playbook is the more the merrier in this transition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that will help, transition at a faster pace. So thanks again, Maxim, for answering that. Now, you've briefly talked about the fleet management system or the software, the background technology that you've developed. So can you add a bit more color to that? Like, when did you come up with that idea, and how has it been developed? What are the features of it?
Sure. In fact, Subodh, if options allow, I will also share a screen of that. It's a very interesting dashboard. And now let me tell you where it came from. We of course we started with ChargeGrid as the primary platform of putting up the network of charging. And when this transition was happening, when we were launching eVett, one of the things that we realized is the ability to guarantee uptime in our services is not only dependent upon the vehicle, it's also dependent upon the vehicle's ability to charge and be available and ready for the next batch of transport, right?
Right.
So that was very key to us. And that's the reason why what we decided is to invest in a technology platform, which is the Magenta platform. And for this, we needed to work a lot along the OEM partners, which meant that when we work with companies, I mean, our first fleet was from Mahindra Electric, and then we had other fleet or vehicle providers. But when we were doing this, we realized that if we were to develop a platform, it also has to be OEM agnostic, right? Because there's going to be a lot of OEMs coming on board, and we already work with OSM, we work with Euler, we're working with a couple of others already. But we wanted to develop a technology which is OEM agnostic, which allows any fleet, any vehicle platform to be residing on it. Yeah. But that platform to be able to do exactly what it is intended is to maximize the outcomes from that asset. And when I say asset, it's the vehicle. But while we were doing this, we realized soon we also need to maximize the outcome from the driver partner, especially from a safety perspective. And you could have chosen to say, hey, listen, what is it in a seatbelt not being worn? But for us, we realized if you're bringing in a change, bring the entire change. And that's why we focus on safety, indicators, speed limits. So all of this can be controlled and monitored on this platform. We are not using this as a regressive. So the entire platform is available. Now we are working not only with the OEMs, now we are working with the client side as well.
Right.
And we can now integrate with the client and say, listen, for example, let's take a classic case. Suppose if someone were to set up an entire e-commerce platform and he wants to know where are these vehicles, what's really happening. Because all the time it was being controlled at a mobile app level, which is handled by the driver.
Right.
And at any point in time, the driver is valued the driver partner is at a package level. One package, he's moving to the hub. But there's a huge 10 packages back in the vehicle, and you need to also give, track that. So the vehicle is a tracking of the entire load. The driver is a tracking of the package. So so that's the why we realized that the e-commerce is tracking at that level, but we decided to track and monitor at a vehicle level.
Yeah.
So this is the tech platform, which means now we go to e-commerce platforms and say, listen, your load is secured and we can tell you exactly where it is and when will it reach the next destination. So that's the kind of transition that we are bringing to this entire last mile and mid-mile logistics, if I were to say. And lots more to do. So both I would very upfront that we were just even learning on the way. And every day we learn very important and interesting things, and we're slowly and steadily building this platform. But this is up and running. We actually can track it right out at my office cabin on the entire cluster of vehicles out in Bangalore.
That's amazing. And now, Maxine, you mentioned about this being a OEM agnostic platform. So currently, which OEMs are you working with?
Right. So, I will mention in the way we built it up. One of the first OEMs we worked was Mahindra Electric or Mahindra Zohr platform. Incidentally, in 2018, when the Mahindra Zohr was launched, we were along with Mahindra because we set up the entire charging platform for them. The first charging platform for Mahindra was at Panshankari in Bangalore, right? So we started up, and then from Mahindra, we started to work with other OEMs as well, which is the first other OEM other than Mahindra was OSM, Omega Seiki. Right? We work very closely with Log9, and there's a relationship between OSM and Log9. We work now with Euler Motors as well. Very interestingly, it is not. We believe that these OEM platforms are not competing. The very interesting thing is we realize that there is a use case for each of the OEMs because of the variance in the vehicle in terms of the use case of each vehicle. So we know very specifically for which OEM, which use case for and which OEM, and that all comes on the back of a lot of the inputs we are getting through a technology platform.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of research goes into that as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge operations, it's a huge amount of tracking, a huge amount of analytics that goes into seeing how we are building this.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Maxim. And then moving on. So this is actually my last planned question. So what are your, future expansion plans, be it in terms of, adding more cities or more product capabilities?
Sure. So I think we take an approach of, so we use a quarter-wise model on our development plans. And these development or incremental plans are at multiple levels. So let me talk about first. Of course, the charging platform operates on its own, the ChargeGrid platform. There's an amazing transition which is happening in the technology, which is the last mile mobility is also moving from slow charging to fast charging.
Right. Yeah.
And we are already working with a lot of partners. In fact, you'll see all our charging stations having fast charging network. So there is that transition is one, which is on the charging side. The second transition is working with a lot more OEMs and baking this back into their telematics as well. That's the second pure technology platform on the Magenta Event side. The third is what is internal to us and from our client's perspective. We already have an ask for expanding. What we have been able to prove is this is a viable model. I mean, we're happy to say that we're the front runners in this. And the viability or the business viability of this entire thing comes when you take an ecosystem play. Right?
Yeah.
And we've been able to prove that by numbers,
right.
Both for ourselves and for others, and prove that there's a viability for so the next step is we've proven it now, get a lot of driver partners on board, right? That's what we are doing. We are saying we'll provide you the entire infrastructure, be it the vehicle, be it the charging, the parking, and we are offering a new model. We're going to launch it soon. It's called ePaaS, Electric Fleet as a Service, which is a very interesting model. We are going to launch it formally, and you're probably one of the first few to know about it.
Yeah.
In which we are working with a lot of e-commerce partners and going to launch this. There's going to be a formal note on that. So the idea is we have provided you a platform. Now come on board. We have proven it. So now, but now we have a geographic expansion plan as well. And like I told, from Bangalore, we'll go to multiple other cities.
Right.
We believe something called as economies of scale. And that's the reason why we did not go to other cities till the time we got everything right at one city. Logistics is, if I were to say, and just it's e-logistics, if I were e-mobility, is a game where you need to be very clear about not spreading thin, but getting it right at one place. So we are now going around multiple cities, and we now have a mandate from our board as well to launch this across multiple cities. So you'll soon see Magenta Event not only in Bangalore, where people now identify Magenta because of our event platform, but in, like I said, Hyderabad next, Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, and Chennai. And then we are going to go tier 2 cities as well, because we see that as a very interesting transition. So this is the way we are planning to grow our business. I wish this, the only point is, there's an amazing push for this transition. There are some macroeconomic issues, etc. There's some technology issues, but we are solving one at a time.
Yeah.
But we are solving it for sure.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of getting it right, in one city and then replicating it to others rather than going everything at once.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a lot of insights, Maxim. Like, I got to know a lot of things which I did not know about before, and I'm sure our audience will also know about a lot of things that Magenta does.
So, thank you so much for this opportunity. And yes, I think I've come to a point where I've also realized that Magenta does a lot of work, but we don't talk enough about it.
Yeah,
But now
absolutely.
it tend to say is because now it's for others also to join the entire ecosystem.
Mhm.
And if we have been able to prove it, help us spread this message
For sure.
that electric mobility or rather clean mobility to start with, but electric mobility is the future.
Yeah,
You will need take a punt at it for especially for the e-commerce companies or even try if you are unable to if you need a partner to do the transition we are there both from charging or providing the vehicles etc but try it for sure.
yeah,
That's my
absolutely.
only message to everyone out there.
Yeah, small players can definitely join you, and
Sure,
you will help them in a big way.
sure. Thanks again, Subodh. This was
Yeah,
nice meeting you.
thanks a lot, Maxim. Uh, it was great talking to you.
Right.